Number 10. Texas balloon disaster. Matt Rowan and his wife Sunday, both young people in their 30s, were inside a hot air balloon when it caught on fire and crashed in a field in Texas back in 2016. He had just started a new job as an Army hospital burns trial chief. He helped soldiers and other injured service members whose terrible burns had injured them. Matt and Sunday were happy. They were in the middle of growing their family, and then they got into a hot air balloon, and everything changed. Alfred Nichols, who also perished in the crash, piloted this air balloon. This was one of the worst balloon disasters in American history. According to the local Texas news, Alfred Nichols was the owner of Heart of Texas hot air balloon rides. He frequently took customers on rides in his hot air balloons, and yet this day something went wrong. The hot air balloon hit a high-tension power line, malfunctioned, and crashed into a field. It killed 16 people on board in the deadliest hot air balloon disaster in American history. Not only that, but it was one of the deadliest hot air balloon accidents in the entire world. Number 9. Losing the pilot. In September 2019, Tom and Shauna Stenton from Louisville, Kentucky, went on a sightseeing tour of Las Vegas, but they didn't do it from the ground. They did it from the air. It was supposed to be the ultimate way to see Vegas, hovering over the city in a great big balloon. But what was supposed to be a fun day turned into a trip from hell. The hot air balloon crashed into the desert outside Las Vegas. During the chaos, they somehow lost their pilot, then had to fend for themselves. According to what Shauna Stenton told Good Morning America in an interview after the accident, the balloon hitting the ground felt like a car crash. It wasn't just a hard landing, it was a violent impact like a car hitting a brick wall. And since something had thrown their pilot from the gondola, it left the couple alone inside the ride as it bounced off the ground. Tom tried desperately to land it, which he miraculously did. He had paid close attention when the pilot was operating the hot air balloon, and he knew that by pulling on the red rope, he could let all the hot air out. He yanked on it twice, which was enough to make the balloon drop. Shauna broke her ankle and her femur and suffered a punctured lung. Tom suffered multiple broken bones, shattered his right hand, and had blood clots in his legs. But believe it or not, they were the lucky ones. Other tourists were in the hot air balloon as well, and the mayhem threw many of them out into the desert sand or dragged them underneath the gondola for nearly a mile. Number 8. High winds in Virginia. The Mid-Atlantic Balloon Festival in 2014 was one of the worst balloon festivals of all time. The festival was near Ruther Glen in Virginia and was the scene of a devastating accident. The day was May 9th, and hot air balloon pilot Daniel Kirk made a mistake. He took his passengers, Ginny Doyle and Natalie Lewis, out in his balloon even though the wind was blowing hard. What happened next, witnesses caught on video. They saw the balloon drifting into a group of trees, contacting power lines, and then bursting into flames. The basket of the hot air balloon was engulfed in flames, probably the worst thing that can happen if you're in a hot air balloon. The people inside the basket had nowhere to go as it burned. Within seconds, those on the ground could hear their traumatizing screams of agony and fear. The screams died down shortly before the balloon crashed hard into the ground, creating a debris field over 5 miles, 8 kilometers long. Everyone in the balloon died that day, all because of some wind. And just to prove how risky hot air balloons are, the winds weren't even extraordinarily high. They were described as higher than ideal. Number 7. Chaos in Albuquerque. A hot air balloon crash in New Mexico claimed the lives of 5 innocent people in the summer of 2021. And like so many of these fatal accidents, it was all because the hot air balloon hit a power line. That's what happened in Texas, in Virginia, and it happened in Albuquerque too. Witnesses saw the balloon smack into the power line just as 13,000 people in the area lost their power. Even more terrifying was that the basket holding all the passengers detached from the balloon and plummeted to the ground. 2 men and 2 women died immediately upon impact, and a 5th passenger died later of his injuries at the hospital. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, the basket fell roughly 100 feet, 30 meters, and landed on a street. It then caught fire, and the balloon floated off on its own. One witness called it heartbreaking. There are no words for how awful this was. Those 5 victims had nothing to cushion their fall except a flimsy woven basket and must have spent the last 30 seconds of their lives in sheer terror. Number 6. Myanmar fireworks. In November 2018, a Buddhist festival in Myanmar went horribly wrong when a hot air balloon exploded. The hot air balloon was carrying 40 pounds, 18 kilograms of fireworks, while floating over the heads of those gathered in the crowd. People had gone out to enjoy the Dang festival, only for a hot air balloon full of explosives to blow up and rain down fire into their hair. If you're not familiar with this Buddhist festival, let me explain quickly. Tourists call it the Festival of Light. It runs from November 14th until November 23rd and is a celebration of the ending of the monsoon season. It's a typical Buddhist holiday, not something celebrated in many other parts of the world. But this celebration did not go according to plan. The hot air balloon was loaded with pyrotechnics. It took off from a dense crowd of people, and once it hit a height of 300 feet, 91 meters, it went off like a bomb. All those fireworks blew up like dynamite, peppering sparks and hot ash down into the crowd as people screamed and ran away. Nobody died, but the accident injured at least 9 people in the chaos. The genuine horror that is accidents at the festival are common. In 2014, another accident killed 4 people, and in 2017, another one injured 15 people, and 2 people died when a hot air balloon packed to the brim with homemade fireworks dropped into a crowd and exploded. Number 5. The Luxor hot air balloon nightmare. The deadliest ballooning accident in history happened on February 26, 2013. A hot air balloon crashed outside Luxor, Egypt. This is the home of the Valley of the Kings, the Great Temple of Karnak, and so many other amazing Egyptian wonders. The people on board were tourists. There were 21 of them, ascending in the hot air balloon just before sunrise to see the sun bloom over one of the most mysterious places in the world. And that was when everything went horribly, horribly wrong. A fire started in the basket because the gas fuel system leaked. This caused the balloon to deflate and crash to the ground. It killed 19 out of the 21 passengers, making it the deadliest balloon disaster since the Hindenburg in 1937. The balloon fell roughly 1,000 feet, 305 meters out of the sky. According to witnesses on the ground, they watched speechlessly as people were being burned alive in the basket. Those who didn't want to burn leaped out to their deaths. It was the most gruesome hot air balloon accident ever, with casualties from Britain, France, Hungary, Japan, Hong Kong, Egypt, and Belgium. The only people who survived were a pilot and a random British tourist. They lived but suffered burns across 70% of their bodies. Number 4. The 1989 Alice Springs tragedy. In 1989, August 13th to be exact, a pair of hot air balloons smashed into one another near Alice Springs in Australia. The collision caused one balloon to hit the ground, killing 13 people. It was a terrible tragedy. It was also the deadliest balloon disaster in history to date. But that changed in 2013, and now the incident at Alice Springs is only the 3rd deadliest. The terrifying ordeal happened when a group of 5 balloons went for a dawn joyride over the desert of the Northern Territory. It's a pretty common thing to do out there, especially in the tourist season. But there were too many balloons, and they were too close to each other. One balloon hit the basket of the balloon above it, which tore a hole in the thin membrane of its balloon. Within seconds, the balloon had completely deflated in an enormous rush of air. It tore the top to pieces, and the basket was sent plummeting to the ground. 3 years after the incident, the Northern Territory Supreme Court sentenced the pilot of the balloon, which had caused the other balloon to burst, to 2 years in jail. Michael Sandby was found guilty of committing a dangerous act, not guilty on 13 charges of manslaughter, and sent to jail. The judge decided he had failed to keep a proper lookout for approximately 30 seconds. That failure caused him to drift into the other balloon, bursting it and resulting in an irreversible disaster. Number 3. Dangling over the edge. In 2021, a 28-year-old man in Israel fell out of a hot air balloon. The way it happened is nothing short of preposterous. The man was not supposed to be in the hot air balloon in the first place. According to local officials, Yogev Cohen, a member of the ground crew, had been left hanging from the basket as it rose into the air. Nobody has any idea how it happened, only that Yogev was clinging to the side of the basket for dear life as it rapidly ascended. The hot air balloon operators discovered the terrified and screaming man dangling from the vessel and tried to reverse their ascent, but they were rising too quickly. They couldn't change their course, so they tried to pull the man into the basket. But pulling someone into a rising hot air balloon is a lot harder than it sounds. As they were trying to yank him aboard, he slipped and fell. Yogev Cohen tumbled 300 feet, 91 meters out of the air and hit a car. It wasn't enough that he fell. He had to land on the roof of a vehicle. By the time paramedics got to him, he was lying in the middle of the road with no pulse. It was a tragedy, and one that rocked the local community. Cohen was a well-known and well-liked person, and the horrific accident that took his life came as a tremendous shock to friends and family. Number 2. Hot air balloon thief. A weekend hot air balloon festival in 2019 got weird in Florida. According to the Marion County Sheriff's Office, they discovered a stolen hot air balloon in the Villagers Hot Air Balloon Festival in the Florida Horse Park. The Sheriff's Office said that for the first time in their 175 years, they recovered a stolen hot air balloon. And to make things even weirder, the stolen piece of property came from over 900 miles, 1,448 kilometers away. The Bloomington Police Department had contacted the local authorities, who said they spotted a balloon that somebody had taken from their jurisdiction at the festival. So the cops showed up and looked around, and they found the stolen piece of property. It's an enormous balloon with a multicolored grid pattern. We don't know why someone stole it, only that the owner didn't want to press any charges. They just wanted to get their balloon back. Number 1. The homemade balloon. In 2015, police arrested a Canadian man for making his own hot air balloon and going for a joyride over the city of Calgary. He didn't exactly fashion an ordinary hot air balloon. He used a large assortment of helium balloons tied to a lawn chair to soar for miles across the Canadian landscape. According to the police, he did it as a promotional stunt. Daniel Boria was in marketing and wanted to promote the name of a cleaning company. He tied 150 helium balloons to his lawn chair and took to the skies. But Daniel didn't exactly have a way to control his expedition. He was flying by the grace of the wind. Wherever the wind wanted to blow, that was where Daniel went. But then it started getting windy. The wind lifted Daniel way too high, and it forced him to abandon ship. Eyewitnesses saw him trying to maneuver his makeshift rig into the downtown area, and once he felt safe, he jumped out of the chair, pulled the string to a parachute he had attached to his back, and landed softly about 9 miles, 14 kilometers away from the city. He missed his landing zone. Police arrested him for mischief, but he was unharmed. Would you rather get stuck in a hot air balloon or a submarine? What scares you more, heights or being underwater? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.